By all accounts, Marilyn Monroe was Hollywood's sex icon. Even the President of the United States was captivated by her, making her the most famous blonde of all time. The legendary actress's meteoric climb to stardom is a classic Cinderella tale, and her life has been the basis for innumerable films. Behind that endearing, carefree smile, was she actually happy? She suffered through 3 miscarriages, sexual assault, producer humiliation, drug addiction, and divorce. The renowned actress Marilyn Monroe had a turbulent existence filled with mystery and tragedy. We will tell you this remarkable woman's real tale and what she said in her last words today. Norma Jean Mortensen was Monroe's given name when she was born on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles. Monroe spent her formative years in a series of foster homes and an orphanage. The girl's friends and neighbors, Grace and Doc Goddard, took it upon themselves to raise Monroe, which began in 1937. Monroe's mother sent her to live with the Goddards for $25 a week. Extremely fundamentalist beliefs were held by the pair. Going to the cinema was one of Monroe's many forbidden hobbies. But they needed assistance in order to afford to take Monroe with them when Doc's employment moved to the East Coast. Monroe returned to foster care when she was 7 years old and disclosed that she had been the victim of multiple sexual assaults. Reportedly, she also stated that she was raped at the age of 11. By the time she was 15 years old, the girl had already dropped out of high school. Finally, Monroe found an exit. Jimmy Doherty, a merchant marine, was her lover, and they were married in 1942 when she was 16 years old. Nobody ever told Monroe who her father was. Due to the widespread belief that Clark Gable was actually her biological father, she had this misconception at first. Gladys, Monroe's mother, had mental health problems and was institutionalized, but there is no evidence that Gable ever crossed paths with her. After Army photographer David Conover paid a visit to the plant where Norma Jean worked, her life took a turn for the worst. Norma Jean's stunning good looks drew him in as he photographed female employees for a magazine. After snapping the picture, he realized he had found something unique. He went back to the factory and talked her into modeling. That someone was willing to give her a chance at modeling and believe in her abilities made her happy, in her opinion, which is why she decided to quit her job at the manufacturing plant. However, the general public did not warm up to it right away. There were plenty of times when she had to compete with other talented young women who were just as determined to be models. It was Conover who captured her stunning appearance on film, and eventually a modeling agency in Los Angeles extended a contract to her. The beauty queen learned how to position and stare into the camera in her excitement to work, even though she was not a very experienced model. Within a few periods, her images began to appear in magazines nationwide. A photographer who would go on to take pictures of Marilyn Monroe observed Miss Belle Rosen and Norma Jean in this Lumet film. Eve Arnold, on the other hand, flaunts her natural talent for photography. Norma Jean used to be blonde before she became Marilyn Monroe. In fact, before she settled on the famed shade of blonde, she experimented with 12 distinct tones. Even though she quickly became a model, her career did not end there. Her images appeared in periodicals nationwide. Her lifelong dream was to make it big in Hollywood as an actor. In 1946, she was sent by her agency to try out for 20th Century Fox, a studio where she quickly became a fan favorite. They signed a contract granting the cobbler weekly wages without requiring her to perform any physical labor. Among women, this was the norm. The head of casting, Ben Lyon, had reservations about signing her since he thought her name was unfit for an actress. After Carter automatically thinks they need a new name, Lyon suggests Marilyn because he saw an actress who looked like her not long ago. Marilyn Monroe came into being when Norma Jean took her grandmother's last name, Monroe. Her marriage to James, meanwhile, was in shambles. Marilyn had loftier aspirations than his conventional ideal of a typical wife and family. They split up in 1946, the same year she inked her contract with MGM Studio in Culver City. Stage fright, or fear of public speaking, was a new obstacle for Marilyn to overcome. Despite her desire to pursue acting, she was terrified of the camera that would never leave her side. She was determined not to give up, so she took lessons in acting, dancing, singing, and even horseback riding impersonation. Not only did she aspire to appear like a celebrity, but she also hoped to become one, complete with fame and fortune. Nevertheless, her contract with Fox was due to expire, and she was no longer employed there. And contrary to what most people thought, she was not about to have her contract renewed. This instance involves Darryl Zanuck, the head of the studio, who had personal feelings against her. It was his belief that she lacked the acting chops for dramatic roles and the good looks for comedies. Marilyn failed to live up to his ideal of a classic Hollywood actress. Marilyn was well aware of the harsh reality of Hollywood when her contract with Fox was not extended in 1947. Marilyn, still let down, had a mini return to the modeling world. However, her true calling was in the performing arts. She was aware that, as an actress returning to the industry, one must surmount obstacles erected by a male-dominated sector. Therefore, she began having affairs with influential men in the hopes that they would pave the way for her. She was hell-bent on succeeding, even though it wasn't her favorite path. Marilyn wrote about this period in her life's reflections titled Wolves I Have Known. Slamming the door on the sexual harassment epidemic in Hollywood, setting the stage for the #Me Too campaign 2 decades later. Marilyn felt like she was a woman battling for respect in a society that treated her like a commodity. Joseph Schenck, a producer about half a century her elder, was one significant person with whom Marilyn had a connection. She moved in with him and started going to parties as his mistress. Having said that, Schenck frequently let his rich friends use Marilyn. Nobody cared about advancing her career. She was but another attractive face in their eyes. Marilyn kept going despite all of this. She devoted many hours to her acting training, practicing for hours on end every day. Veteran photographer Ben Lyon was astonished by Marilyn's resolve. He remembered her saying she trained hard to be ready for opportunity when it came. Marilyn signed a 6-month contract with Columbia Pictures in 1948, all because of Schenck. A more glitzy cut and platinum blonde hair color completely changed her look. Natasha Lyonne, her acting coach, became like a mother to her as she helped her through her studies. While working with Monroe on 22 films over 6 years, Natasha was important in her growth as an actress. Monroe had trouble with her technique at first, but she improved her abilities and got over her speech and voice problems with Lyonne's help. Some say that Monroe's whispering is a result of her past stuttering, while others say that Lyonne taught her to whisper. In addition to her time spent working with Lyonne, Monroe also worked on her own schooling to develop her signature style. In order to polish her walk, she read a book called The Thinking Body, which taught her body language skills. One of the exercises was to imagine a rope coming from her top and attached to a cloud. Her beautiful walk captivated the film crew in the long-shot scene near Niagara, for instance. At the same time, Monroe was taking singing lessons from Fred Karger at Columbia Pictures. Despite her feelings for him, their relationship ended in failure, which only served to exacerbate her trust difficulties. Monroe, who was unemployed and struggling, got a part in the low-budget musical Ladies of the Chorus, but it didn't help her career. Monroe was easily taken advantage of because she was vulnerable due to her financial problems and emotional concerns. She was left devastated, ashamed, and penniless after an encounter with 3 men escalated into a near-rape nightmare. Tom Kelly, a photographer, approached her in 1949 with the prospect of a paid photo session, which resulted in a series of naked photos that would go on to have a huge cultural impact. Marilyn first laid eyes on Johnny Hyde at a racket club in Palm Springs. She showed both her cold side and her true love for him during their relationship, which catapulted her to fame. There may have been casting couch rumors, but Marilyn's affair with Hyde was major. It should be mentioned that Hyde was already married and had 2 small children when they met, even though she declined to marry him for his wealth. A major boost to Marilyn's career occurred during their romance. She landed a steady gig at 20th Century Fox and landed a pivotal role in All About Eve with Hyde's help. Her breakout performance in The Asphalt Jungle was also attributed to him. Her cause was also supported by Lucille Ryman, a talent scout from MGM. The thought of Marilyn's life after Hyde's untimely death makes one wonder what would have happened if he hadn't been there for her in the beginning, and whether their love would have been able to endure. Still, her loss was genuine, and she had nothing but good things to say about him. Hyde proposed to Marilyn, but she shocked him by turning down his marriage proposal, ending their romance. She loved spending time with the charming producer, but she was hesitant to tie the knot with someone she didn't love. Hyde, hurt by her rejection, threatened that her star would gradually dim apart from him. But Marilyn, ever the rebel, was hell-bent on proving him incorrect. Charles Stanley Gifford, Marilyn's biological father, had begun to be sought after at the same time. In 1952, she anxiously dialed his number after searching for it. But in a brutal rejection, he invited her to meet with his lawyer. Marilyn was so devastated by the rejection that she ran away once more. She fell into a profound despair because of this predicament. Regardless, Marilyn fought valiantly. She felt the need to assert herself and prove that she was more than just a pretty face for the wedding. She said, "First, I am trying to convince myself that I am a person," ignoring her previous comments. "Afterwards, maybe I can convince myself that I'm doing acting." How did you feel about her affair with Johnny Hyde? She started acquiring major roles in movies like Monkey Business, Don't Bother to Knock, and Clash by Night quite quickly. Please inform us in the space provided. Daryl Zanuck, head of the studio, maintained his stereotype of the actress as a stupid blonde even as her name recognition grew. Marilyn personified the stereotypical beautiful gold digger who acts ignorant since that's what everyone expects of her. Marilyn, though, remained dissatisfied. She resolved to better herself by taking on a more prominent position. She was excellent at being a sex object, but she hated it when people looked at her that way. Crafting Marilyn Monroe's image with such meticulous care that she became engrossed in it. She was a complex, multifaceted, fragile, and strong individual. She persisted in her struggle to be recognized as an accomplished actor. A femme fatale character in Niagara was one of her finest performances after she finally broke through. She continued to encounter discrimination despite the role's success for her career. She earned less than the film's makeup artist despite her rising stardom. She is still receiving a pitiful wage from an expired contract. Still, hope was rising. As Marilyn's status as a Hollywood glamour queen was already elevated, she received word while filming in Niagara that she had been cast in the musical comedy Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. On the other hand, Marilyn received her dressing room and a lot of special treatment while filming Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, as seemed to suggest that she was suddenly one of the studio's major movie stars. But Marilyn was anxious that she would embarrass herself in front of her more seasoned co-stars if the pressure mounted. She frequently made everyone wait because she would arrive early and leave late. On occasion, only her co-star Jane Russell could get her to leave her trailer. Even though they got along well, Marilyn was irritated when she found out that Russell was making $200,000 from the movie, while she struggled with a pitiful $500 weekly. If the studio had considered overdubbing Marilyn's lines, they would have been more satisfied with her voice. Thankfully, they opted not to do that, and instead included it in the cover of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend for just 2 scenes. Marilyn did sing her own tunes, though she was punctual every time. Marilyn Monroe was never actually prepared to begin filming. Marilyn was running behind schedule on the set of How to Marry a Millionaire. Marilyn spent hours getting dressed, but as the lights came on, she transformed into someone completely different, according to director Jean Niculesco. Both films were huge hits when they came out in 1953. Marilyn Monroe's fame skyrocketed as a result. Her acting career belies the fact that her life was anything but ordinary, so that is not far from the reality. Joe DiMaggio, a baseball legend, was married to Marilyn in 1954. Unfortunately, the days that followed were just as unhappy as those of other famous marriages. DiMaggio was quite traditional and even jealous. He thought Marilyn should stay at home and be a housewife even though she wanted to be free and see the world. Their differences led to arguments. Despite her best efforts to win him over, she even learned to cook. Regardless of how flattering his wife's physique was, DiMaggio could never look past the negative aspects of the attention around her. The final scene from The 7-Year Itch was shot, and he and Marilyn got irritated with each other. As the crowd goes wild and the cameras shine their lights about, Marilyn's dress floats up into the sky. The sequence involving the actress was what made the man furious when DiMaggio showed up on set. On one side we have Marilyn's sexually active and lucrative career, while on the other we have Miller's traditional husband. The message was crystal clear: their marriage was coming to an end. Divorce was finalized solely 9 months after the marriage. Following her divorce from Joe and this Subway tremendous episode, Marilyn's distance from 20th Century Fox widened. The lack of autonomy over her work and the low pay left her bored. A watershed moment arrived in 1954 when Marilyn was once again on the receiving end of Hollywood's decision to suspend her rather than hire her. She refused to give up, so she and photographer Milton Green started a production firm in New York after she relocated from Hollywood. The business was taken aback by her daring decision. They only saw beauty in Marilyn, but she was hell-bent on proving them wrong. She sued Fox for a whole year, starting in January 1955. Marilyn was anything but the naive blonde she played on screen behind the scenes. More than 400 books were in her personal library. She was a voracious reader who sought information continually, whether it was through the plays of Tennessee Williams and Fitzgerald or the volumes of Aristotle and Plato, to make up for her lack of formal schooling. Marilyn even registered for UCLA's evening art and literature programs. She had an unusual taste in literature. She would randomly select books and purchase them based on her impressions of individual paragraphs. She displayed her cerebral side in a famous portrait of herself reading Ulysses, a challenging novel by James Joyce. Poet Norman Roston, who was her friend, said that she was the type of lady who put on a mask in public but who, behind closed doors, was always looking for meaning in literature and life. Marilyn adored poetry and possessed an innate talent for interpreting intricate forms. She dabbled in painting as well, penning racy sketches that went on to fetch high prices at auction. Aside from her glamour Hollywood persona, Marilyn had a darker side that came out in her insatiable desire for knowledge and creative expression. She resisted being pigeonholed, despite her many talents and complexity. Arthur Miller, a famous playwright, fell in love with Marilyn because he saw her for more than just a sex object. They were political activists and readers who enjoyed each other's works. Marilyn, on the other hand, needed to feel more safe, so she sought Miller's opinion on most matters. Many disapproved of the couple's relationship due to Miller's alleged communist ties. Even though Fox attempted to persuade Marilyn to end their relationship, she refused. Miller took advantage of Marilyn's prominence by announcing their engagement to the public before even proposing. Variety magazine dubbed their 1956 wedding Egghead Weds Hourglass, despite the fact that they had a difficult start. While on their honeymoon in London, Marilyn shot Laurence Olivier's The Prince and the Showgirl, which she produced through her own company. It was a complete bust. Characterized by ongoing conflicts between Olivier and Marilyn. After Olivier treated Marilyn like a sex object and disregarded her opinions, Marilyn was devastated. The tensions rose and Miller began to suspect that Olivier was envious of Marilyn's fame. Because of this, the picture bombed. But Marilyn's career went on and her star was shining. She made a triumphant return to Hollywood in the 50s, signing with 20th Century Fox Studio once more and starring in Bus Stop. It was evident that Marilyn was more than simply a beauty queen in this serious play, which helped her get a Golden Globe nomination. However, with fame came demands, and Marilyn struggled to distinguish between her starlet persona and the ghost of her mental illness. Their relationship had its ups and downs as time went on. Fox pushed Marilyn to end their relationship while the FBI monitored Miller for possible communist links. That was her refusal. The studio bosses born cowards while vehemently defending her devotion. With 2 ceremonies, Marilyn's Jewish conversion and a honeymoon that coincided with filming The Prince and the Showgirl in London, their marriage was a whirlwind. Director Laurence Olivier treated Marilyn like a sex object and disregarded her views, leading to an escalation of tensions on site. Throughout her career, Marilyn had the nagging sensation of being disrespected. When Marilyn returned home, she found Miller's notes criticizing her and expressing worries about their relationship. This caused fractures to form in her marriage. She was crushed by this news, however, she held on to the hope that they could salvage their relationship. Yet, due to her serious mental troubles, Marilyn's condition deteriorated over time. She suffered from sleeplessness, depended on sleeping drugs to get some rest, and her complexes continued to worsen. The once beautiful star has spoken publicly about her struggles with depression and loneliness. Some Like It Hot, which Marilyn had the opportunity to star in 1958, is widely regarded as a classic. But behind the scenes, it was absolute chaos. The effects of the medications on her memory and performance were detrimental, and the pressure to maintain her sex symbol reputation was too great. It was stressful for her and the crew because she had trouble getting even one line right on the first shot, let alone all 12. Despite the obvious impact of her personal problems on her professional performance, she persisted in pursuing her dream of being an actress, despite the fact that she knew she had to prove herself. The tragic overdose of barbiturates that Marilyn Monroe was taking for her sleeplessness and emotional issues ultimately led to her death on August 4, 1962. Tragically, this young woman passed away at an early age despite the best efforts of her doctors and psychiatrist. The United States and Europe were both shocked by her untimely death. Although the official investigation stated that Monroe's death was likely the result of suicide, rumors persisted for a long time that he had actually died of a drug overdose or murder. According to multiple sources, Monroe had one of her final discussions with her hairdresser Sidney Gilleroff but attorney Mr. John Bates disproved this, claiming that the AG was actually spending the weekend in Northern California with his family. Nevertheless, there were no signs of foul play, and the official autopsy determined that Monroe committed suicide. Because of Monroe's complicated relationship with John F. and Robert F. Kennedy, the president, and his brother, rumors about a possible romance between the Kennedy family members persist.